Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Trails Radio Show. Thank you for joining us today. Join me and my guest, actor and writer, Mr. Morrow Wilson, in a few minutes. Thanks. Are you ready to get started for the interview?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay. My first question to you is, how did your career begin? How did you get started in the industry?
You know, that's the answer to that question is quite strange. I had no intention of becoming an actor when I was, let's say, in college, and when I left college, I began to work in television, which in those days was not was kind of an ugly stepchild to the movies and other things, and so I wanted to do some what I thought was quality television, because the quality was pretty bad as a rule. Okay, so having done that, I found myself suddenly embroiled in an advertising career, because apparently I had the skills that were involved in that. So I went on, and it was only when I left my advertising job, which was 1970, that I decided, well, I've been reading commercials to my bosses all these years. So what if I were to read them to a microphone and make a whole lot of money? And so I set out to find an agent, and I found one who was a very, very good agent at that particular time. Mm-hmm. And I began to make. First I had to study voice, which I hadn't ever done, and learn about how to talk into a microphone and that kind of stuff. And I learned all that. I began to get commercials, and my agent would, whenever something came up that was kind of small fry, like a job as on a soap opera or something, where you'd like no lines or maybe under 5 lines, then that would
Excuse the technical difficulties.
Hello, you still there?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I had another call. I tried to silence it, and I'm sorry. So you were saying?
Yeah. So where are we? Let's see. So I began to get small parts in soap operas and such like, and finally decided that if I was going to make money as an actor, I better learn how to act. So I then did some studying with a very good acting teacher in New York, and eventually that I became a full-fledged actor. But I started really rather late. I mean, I was many people who enter the profession have always wanted to be an actor, or have a parent who insists that they be an actor, stuff like that there. And not me. I was, if you'd asked me the year that I stopped working in advertising, if you told me you're going to be an actor, I would have said, well, that be after or before I'm an astronaut. It just seemed very far-fetched. And so there was that. And that led... And of course, all along, because the first thing that I had always been was a writer, and in fact, when I left my job in advertising, I figured I would be able to sell a novel, and indeed that happened. So anyway, so that's just how my story went. If I had it to do over, I would have been more aware that being an actor was a much higher priority to me, and I would have gone to the as prestigious an acting academy as I could, whether it would be Lincoln Center or Yale Drama or RADA over in England, because it's a business that acting is something that requires a whole bunch of skills, and so you need to know those things to begin with. And what I did was kind of slow things down for myself by not really understanding what it was I wanted to be. So that's the answer to that question.
I understand. Yeah, this industry, you have to have a lot of training.
Yep.
A lot of people tell you you need training, go to acting class, acting school, and learn numerous traits, singing, dancing, because you'll be a double threat or a triple threat. You learn all what you can in this industry, because you never know what you'll end up doing.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think that if indeed what you want to do is to act, let's say, or to sing or to dance, whatever it is you want to do, you must become an expert in how to do that. I mean, you wouldn't want somebody with no experience operating on your body. So, by the same token, you as an actor, you need to be very skilled one way or another. And there are, of course, examples that contradict that, like child actors who were very good without a whole lot of training, but they're not really asked to do the work that most actors are asked to do. I mean, you can't imagine a child playing Hamlet or Henry V or something. You need, and also one other point, when people say, well, when are you going to make it? When have you made it? How do you know? I would say that you better, when you set out to become an actor, you had better devote at least 5 years to it, and where you learn acting, you learn the ropes, you learn about auditioning, you learn all the things you have to learn to make a living. It takes a while, and I would just remind people that life is very long, and there's really no point in being impatient, because it's a field that you really need to care about in order to enter.
Absolutely. You need to learn what you're getting into, because this is not a get-rich business or a easy business to get into. A lot of people my age, these aspiring actors, think, it's a money business, and that's not necessarily the case. There's...
In fact, it's almost never the case. There are these exceptions. I have, when I started out, I was very often the youngest guy in the room,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm probably the oldest. And kids come to me and they ask me, well, how can I, how can I break into, let's say, films? And I will say, well, first of all, you need to be on the West Coast, and even then, you've got no guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
And really, in the end, the chances of your becoming the next big thing are quite tiny. So you better love to act if you want to be an actor. That better be something that allows you to go through life without necessarily making a whole lot of money. It's quite right. What you said is absolutely accurate. I think that if money is what you're after, acting probably isn't the way to get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's you have to have the craft for it, the dedication for it, and like we've both said, it's almost never the case that money will come. It's good when money does happen, but it's not a steady income job. If that's what you're looking for.
It's right. It's gig after gig after gig, which has its advantages. I mean, it's very nice if you find yourself in, I don't know, in a gig that is awful. It'll be over very quickly. It'll end. So, but your half your work is looking for work.
Mm-hmm. Right. My next question is, what do you find is the most challenging part or the most difficult part for being in the industry, being an actor or being someone in the industry in general? What is most challenging?
Well, I suppose, creating a career in it is the most complicated thing, because that does require, about half your time spent looking for work, as I just pointed out, and I think it's different with actresses and actors, because as an actor, the older you get, the less competition there is, the better chance you have to work. Of course, you wouldn't be working as a leading man, but you'd be working as a character actor probably. But if you're so what happens to the young men who are acting in their 20s is typically that they find somebody, fall in love, and now their significant other says to them, now you can't be doing this acting thing. You've got to get a job and make money. And they say, yeah, you're right, and so they do, and so the men begin to be eliminated, self-eliminated. With women, it's a little different, because they tend to have husbands to support them when they go into this matter, and they don't need to work all the time, because they do have another source of income in the guy they marry. So that means that it's very hard for a woman of any age to carve a career out. So those are the yeah. I think that'll have to be my answer.
Yeah, and it's different for every individual. Yeah.
Quite true, and of course, time is very the era that you live in. For example, back in 1972, when The Godfather came out, it established a whole trend, and all of a sudden, guys and gals who were of Italian ancestry, or who looked as though they were in great demand. Mm-hmm. And you didn't really have to be good looking or in great shape to play a lot of those characters. And so it was I think probably it's fair to say that a third of the business in New York, anyway, which is where I was, a third of the business was involved gangster movies and the like. And so if you happen to be tall, dark, and handsome at that point in history, there would be a lot more work for you than there would be back, say, when the box office consisted of Gary Cooper and Clark Gable and a lot of wasps, really.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be either in New York or California to, have a not successful career, but a big surrounding, of work.
I think that's generally speaking, that's quite true. It doesn't mean though that you can't have. There are many other cities. Mm-hmm. All of them have stage groups, and I know people who are wonderful actors, really, really astonishingly good, who are not interested in being in New York or Hollywood, and they live in wherever they live, and work all year round at the theater group and make local commercials and all like that, and that's a possibility as well. But again, it's still not a way to make a whole lot of money.
Yeah, and new places are opening up each year. Where I live in Mississippi, but most of my work was in Louisiana, in the southern coast, and, the southern states are opening more opportunities. And
yes, and I think that's a good thing, and that's for movies, but unfortunately, the main casting is done either in New York or in Hollywood. Mm. So, there's a chance for bit players and extras. In fact, that's guaranteed that they'll have those parts available. But as to playing the lead, or the second lead, or someone who is, who's a box office person, they tend to go with. I don't know a case of them taking a native son or daughter and turning them into a movie star. But I remember that an actress once said to, quite a successful actress, once said to me that when she was a kid, she was in Oklahoma, and one day it hit her that those people up on the screen, they weren't born in Hollywood. They weren't born in New York. They made those pilgrimages, and that's exactly what she did, and she became quite a successful actress, because we all have to come from somewhere, and most people are not born in Southern California or in New York City.
Mm. Absolutely. A lot of people travel to those big places to make their venture, make their career.
Indeed, and there's a lot to be said for that. I had a wonderful acting teacher many years ago who told, when I asked him what's the difference between West Coast actors and East Coast actors, he said, there's no difference. They're the same. And I think that's good to know. I mean, the values are somewhat different, because the East Coast tends to be much more theater related, and the West Coast is much more film related. But that's so. Anyway, yes, many are called, few are chosen, but obviously you have to be in it mm-hmm. to win it.
Absolutely, definitely. Are you still active in the industry, or are you retired nowadays? I don't think an actor ever retires, because as long as you can walk, and even if you can't, there's always some work available. No, but I had a very serious health matter that has taken me away from New York, and I now live in Washington State, which is a very beautiful place, and the Pacific Northwest is just marvelous, and it's I've been here now for about 5 years, getting
recuperating, and I think I'm getting better. So who knows? Maybe next year at this time I'll have returned to New York, or simply gone down the Pacific Coast Highway to Los Angeles. I don't know, but it's certainly something that I would entertain under any circumstances, because it's a remarkable art, and there are a lot of people who are actors, and very few who are really excellent actors and who knock you on your backside every time you see them. And of course, what you strive for is to be one of that category. So acting is very challenging and very tempting at the same time.
Absolutely. It's sort of a double-sided coin, the good and the bad. And
Yeah.
My next question to you is, you were also a writer. Your dad was a writer, and you took that up.
That's true.
What are your books at? Where can people find your books? Are they on Amazon?
Oh, yeah, they are on Amazon. One of them is called David Sunshine, and one of them is called MIM, MIM, those three initials. And I'm working on one now. Well, I shouldn't say I'm working on it. I'm about to embark on another one. But yeah, writing, because my dad was a nonfiction reporter type writer, who he made his living entirely on books and magazines, which is very damn near impossible nowadays. It's just too much narrow casting. But at any rate, so I was always supposed to be a writer, and I took that on very enthusiastically. I got my first rejection slip from the Saturday Evening Post when I was 14, and I made the first money I made writing when I was 17, and I've been writing ever since. So that's something that's very compatible with acting, because what you're doing in both cases is chronicling the behavior of human beings, and one is a performance and the other is a composition. So it's not as though people are rushing in and saying, "Stop acting. You've got to write a bestseller," or something. Because again, the same thing in the arts is it's true throughout the arts. If you're a painter or a dancer or a writer or an actor or whatever, you can't expect to be financially. You can't expect to be a tycoon.
Mm. Yeah, it's and like you said, it comes hand in hand with acting, because writing is a big deal with acting. Screenplay writing, and
That's true too. Yeah, and people do. What you'll find is, when you're dealing with professional actors, is that they don't just do one thing. I mean, Sinatra was what do you call it? He loved to take pictures. He was constantly, being a photographer. Mm-hmm. Steve McQueen, aside from his famous cars that he worked on, he also directed, and so forth and so forth and so forth. You have a lot of. I had one friend, a very successful actor, very critically acclaimed by the New York Times and other critically acclaiming people, and he doubled as a set designer. So whenever you went to visit him in his little apartment, it was a totally different decor each time, you know. And so he would just sort of create in his spare time, which is where there's plenty, of which there's plenty. He would just change this into a medieval, the interior of a medieval castle, or a Japanese something or other, living room, I guess, that kind of stuff. And so there is that. We all have other things that we fancy we'd like to do.
Absolutely. It becomes your craft, it becomes your second nature.
That's right. If you're lucky. See, I think the way it happens is that you start off, and I'm not talking about Patty Duke or wonderful child actors who start off magically able to play the roles that they're assigned, but when you're an actor and you're beginning, I think what happens is you go out there and you act, and you're probably not as good as you think you are. You're probably fooling yourself a little bit, but that's what it takes to get you onto the stage. Then after you worked a while and learned what you're doing a little better, you're probably about as good as you think you are. And then if you are lucky, and if everything goes well, you turn out to be acting better than you realize, and that I think is that's something that comes with the accumulation of skills and experience.
Absolutely, and you can never gain enough experience. There's always room to learn.
I believe that. There are people who don't, but I've talked to a lot of jaded actors also who say, and I said at one point, I never, as awful as some of these productions are, and in New York there are zillions of productions going on off Broadway, if nowhere else, and then some pretty bad ones on Broadway too. So, and I would say, well, I've never been to any kind of play where I didn't learn something, And this old codger said, "Yeah, well, I sure have," and that's an attitude, But there's always room to learn stuff. I mean, geez, and that's one of that's one of the pleasures of it. Of course, you don't look at things like a normal theater goer. I mean, you're watching for all kinds of stuff that maybe I guess what I'd say is you're not being entertained as much as you are learning from what other people are doing. And I don't mean that's guaranteed down the line. There are plenty of actors who are wonderful audiences, but I'm not among them. I just it's like it's work to watch other actors work. In my case.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, and you learn that. I call myself a people watcher because actors are people watchers. They're watching actions, watching every little thing.
Yep, that's right. And those little things what make what make a character a character. There's certain actors who are just super actors. Anthony Hopkins is one who just everything he does, he's just working to make that character happen. Whether it's the way he crosses his legs, or the way he smiles, or the way or of course in the case of Hannibal Lecter, that's an amazing character that he's created there. A real monster with all kinds of stuff that maybe you didn't think was all that monstrous, But now, when he brings those things together, wow. And that's very important in that movie, I think, because that movie depends on the idea of Lecter being some kind of super monster. That if you don't give him a paperclip, or he'll wipe out the city of Detroit. It's really a silly premise, but Hopkins makes it close to believable because of the character that he creates.
Absolutely. Well, Mr. Wilson, thank you very much for letting me talk to you. I'm glad we were finally able to do the interview. It's been a pleasure, and thank you very much.
Well, my pleasure, and entirely, and I'm glad we got to do this, and I certainly wish you the very best, and the same to your listeners and you podcasters, and thanks for giving me the chance to unpack a little stuff here.
My pleasure. I'll send you a link to the interview where you can listen to it and share it. So,
bless your heart. Thanks so much.
Thank you. You have a good day.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And that was actor and writer Mr. Morrow Wilson. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you all enjoyed it. Excuse the background noise. It was my clock when it turned 4 o'clock, and then if you heard a little jingle, that's my cat in the background playing with his toy. And thank you very much for listening, and as always, God bless.